BT12 is officially here, and we have some preliminary data coming in that would recommend Beelzemon as the #1 deck choice for the BT12 English 2023 meta as it is going into regionals, because Ultimate Cups will come in June and that could change everything maybe. I don't have all the local information, but I know that GFG had a locals on Monday and Beelzemon won, and during the course of my subathon I had 5 locals. And Beelzemon won 4 of those 5 locals, where the 5th deck actually was Black or Greymon, which is pretty cool. But regardless, my point here is Beelzemon is definitely taking the format by storm. And yes, these are local results, they're not regionals, they're not big tournaments, so it doesn't hold a proper aspect ratio as to just how powerful the deck really is per se. We'll find that out soon when regionals start. But we can't ignore the fact that Beelzemon is definitely a tier 1 deck and possibly even the best deck of the format. During my subathon, I played a little bit of Beelzemon here and there. Also had my testing group testing other decks and other strategies to try to counter Beelzemon to see what we could come up with as far as finding a deck's weakness or finding a way to maybe stop the deck dead in its tracks. It's not very easy, but we have come up with 5 suggestions. Like, we had more, but 5. We'll stick with 5. 5 good ones that you might be able to introduce into your decks to allow you to better combat the Beelzemon matchup. So I'm going to go over these 5 cards. You let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you agree with my choices? Do you think my choices aren't good enough? Do you think of anything else that I didn't introduce in this video? You let me know what you guys think in the comments. As well, like and subscribe to notification bell to smash potatoes. That way you know when all these videos go live. Also, if you do want random advice videos like this, you know, how to beat X or how to do Y or whatever else, let me know. I am open to making more and more content as things go. I'm going to start off with #1 here. I think this one's pretty obvious. It's the cards that effectively act as memory floodgates, like Beelzemon and Trumon. Those cards that say, you can't gain memory by card effects, only tamer effects. Yes, it's a problem against Ai and Mako for sure, but they can no longer focus on milling Wizardmon or Deathslinger, or using Starter Deck Beelzemon to mill and gain memory back. They'll have to come up with more Ai and Mako strategic usage, or get rid of it first. One of the interesting things about Beelzemon and why it's such a menace is that the deck can get rid of level 3s easier. Starter Deck Digimon being a really good example. If you have mill on top of it, mill 2 cards, you pop the Floodgate. And that's a good strategy to get rid of it. However, they won't always have it, right? And the longer a Beelzemon or something sticks on the board, the more that you can formulate a strategy and actually try to do something about the matchup. It's not a perfect solution, and there are no perfect solutions on this list, which is part of the reason why Beelzemon is so powerful. It has the tools, the strength, and the skill, I would say, behind the pilot to basically overcome almost anything as long as the cards are in their favor. The deck does lose to itself sometimes. The second card on this list goes to Omnimon Merciful mode. Now, I know some of you aren't the biggest fan of this card, and I'm aware that not everybody can play Omnimon Merciful mode, and that's fine. That's not really a big deal. Why is it on the list though? Because a well-timed Omnimon Merciful mode can bottom deck their Beelzemon stack, as well as return 10 cards from the trash to the bottom of the deck. It's not supposed to be a game-ending card, but it's supposed to tilt the scale in your favor, because now they have less cards in their trash, and if you put back cards that don't have mill effects, let's say just 10 rando garbage cards, all of a sudden they have less cards in trash to do things like Starter Deck Beelzemon, Warp Starter Deck Impmon, but they just have more crap in their deck, and they can't do much with that if you get to that point in the game. Again, Omnimon Merciful mode is not a perfect solution by any means. Yes, you have to play a deck that can go easily into Omnimon Merciful mode. Not every deck can do that. But a well-timed Omnimon Merciful mode in testing can completely cripple a Beelzemon matchup, especially if it's before the point where they get like 20 cards in trash, or maybe they just hit 20 cards in trash, you put 10 back. It causes issues for sure. It also interferes with things like Deathslinger or EX2 Beelzemon that have level modulated removal based on the number of cards in trash. On Merciful mode just says, I'm going to make your life a little bit harder in that regard. So honestly, the card is really good. It also burns a security if it survives a turn. So I think that's wonderful. The third choice goes to cards with the ability, all turns, players can't ignore Digivolution requirements. Kakuamon from BT8 completely is a good example of this card. Something that says, you know, you can't warp your Impmon. You just can't do it. And that's not honestly too bad. It's a very niche pick, has to be well timed, and dropped on the board when they have an Impmon in the back with cards in the trash. But if you can drop this at the right time, sometimes they need to warp that Impmon into a Beelzemon to actually play the game, and a card like a Coolmon just says, how about no? And I think that's pretty cool. The card just says you can't do it. It has niche applications against other decks as well, so it's not just good against Beelzemon. But, you know, well-timed is fine. You don't drop this turn 1, God forbid. That's a terrible idea. But, you know, if you get it down at the right time, you could cause a Beelzemon opponent some difficulties. The fourth pick on this list goes to the cards that floodgate your opponent, or yourself, technically, from playing cards by effects. This goes to the Pillowmon, the Pomumon, and the Crimson Blaze, of course. These cards are good because they prevent the opponent from playing cards by effects. They can no longer mill EX2 Beels and get some extra cards on the table. This card is far down on the list because I don't see it being as effective in the grand scheme of things. It's easily poppable for 1, and it's only niche against that certain application. So while I don't recommend going out of your way for these cards, if you're playing Bloomlord or something, you know, throw in some Pomumons, maybe in addition to the matchup for Beelzemon. If you're playing a yellow deck, maybe try some Pillowmons. If you're playing red, try some Crimson Blazes if you need it for the matchup. Again, not a perfect solution by any means. It's down lower on the list because of that. It's worse, I think, in my opinion, than the other 3 cards listed so far. But it's still fine. It's pretty good. And, you know, if you've seen that they haven't milled many EX2 Beelzemons, maybe a well-timed one could, like, send them packing. And the final 5th pick on this list is actually kind of like an interesting concept. It's a card. It's a card that I love very much. And it's something that we just started to test that seems to work really well. It is, of course, Venusmon. Venusmon's when Digivolving gives everything security minus, global effect for until the opponent's turn at the end phase, and anything in the meantime doesn't activate when Digivolving when attacking effects. Beelzemon is all about when Digivolving or when attacking effects, so Venusmon effectively shuts the deck down for a turn. Now, the proper way to do this is you chip away at your opponent a little bit, you save the Venusmons for when they really, really need them, evolve up, do the thing, and you just shut them down for a turn, and it's really that easy. The problem is you have to get into Venusmon, and you have to play a deck that plays Venusmon, which, you know, it is kind of a difficulty. However, we have something cooking. We're letting my guys cook, and myself cook while we're at it. And we have something working in the background. But Venusmon, very good card, and definitely a counter strategy to Beelzemon, in my opinion. Bonus points! Honestly, the best way to beat Beelzemon is to just win the mirror match. Now, Beelzemon is a combo deck. It's one of the more complicated decks to pilot in Digimon. Everything has to be perfect, and you have to know what you do with your mills. You have to be constantly adapting, constantly counting cards in your opponent's trash, your trash, doing inventory of what cards left in their deck, have mill effects, all that kind of thing. You got to manage the skill very properly. I only lost 1 Beelzemon mirror match out of like 5 or 6 on stream, and a lot of the times I was always thinking, all the time, what can my opponent mill? What's the best play? What do I do to try to minimize what he can do? All this sort of stuff. If you can perfect the Beelzemon mirror match, then the only enemy you'll have at that point is RNG, because the deck does beat itself sometimes, which is why it's not like tier 0 or anything like that. But if you can just master the mirror match, that's honestly the best way to go in my opinion, because everyone will be countering towards you, and all these 5 cards or types of cards in this video will not just do the job by themselves. The deck is a big toolbox deck. It has ways to counter all of that stuff. So I think the Beelzemon mirror match is something that you should definitely learn, and see what happens. If you want to play regionals, if you want to get your invite, mastering Beelzemon might honestly just be the way to go. That's it, guys. What do you think? What do you think about my 5 types of choices for this video? Let me know in the comments if I missed anything good, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye!